Today, we're talking about personal statements. What are the 3 things that you should absolutely try to avoid? And I hate speaking in absolutes, but what are 3 things you should really try to avoid this cycle as you write your law school personal statements? Let's talk about it. For those of you who are new, my name is Sydney Montgomery. I'm the founder of Montgomery Admissions Consulting, where we specialize in working with first-generation and minority law school students. And we're talking about personal statements today, which are my personal favorite. Little pun on the personal statement. I'm not funny, I know. But I wanted to have this conversation because while I know a lot of you are really focused on the LSAT, you really want to also start thinking about drafting. We're about 12 weeks from the end of September. Generally speaking, you want to try to hit submit sometime in the fall. September, October, the beginning of November, it's all fair game. But we're really getting to the place where if you haven't started thinking about your essays, if you haven't started thinking about your personal statement, you want to start thinking about your personal statement. Hey, even your diversity statement, some supplemental essays. We think it takes at least 12 weeks to put together really strong applications. And there are multiple components to your applications. And so I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about some things to avoid in your personal statements as you are beginning to draft them, because I'm beginning to see them. And when I start seeing the same things over and over again, I want to reach out and make sure that you guys know, hey, let's talk about it. So there are 3 things that I want to make sure that you are kind of thinking about differently in your personal statement. One of the first things I want to talk to you about is centering trauma, or what to do with an obstacle that has been the reason why you want to go to law school, right? A lot of times there is maybe a negative incident that we've experienced or that we have witnessed or that a family member has gone through, and that's what's driving us to want to apply to law school. But how do we talk about that in a personal statement in a way that's not just 2 pages of this is the worst sob story of my entire life, but, hey, I'm still here, persevered, let me into law school. Not the most compelling narrative arc there. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about just not having focus, because I have read a lot of unfocused personal statements and what that means and how we can avoid that. Because when you lack focus in your personal statement, when I read the end of your personal statement, I have no idea why you want to go to law school. I have no idea what kind of law you want to practice. I have no idea what is bringing you here. I'm not convinced. And guys, if you cannot convince me, you certainly cannot convince admissions, right? And so we want to talk about focus. And then that last piece, we're going to talk about structure, which sounds like focus, but is actually not. You can absolutely know why you want to go to law school, and you can have a completely unstructured essay. And I mean, where is the beginning, middle, and end? Where are the transitions? How does one point flow to another? Sometimes I think people just give me stream of consciousness and they're like, well, and I'm like, no, I don't know, because I am distracted by poor writing quality. And if I am focused on poor writing quality, I'm actually not focused on why you want to go to law school. So we're going to talk about that. So that first thing, though, is I don't want you to center your trauma. And I think that this is really easy to do in a lot of cases, especially because I think a lot of the advice there is your law school personal statement should be about a really challenging obstacle and how you overcame it, and how the qualities that you have that led you to overcome your obstacle make you a good lawyer. I don't really know who started that trend. I would absolutely be in favor of, maybe getting rid of that trend. Because yes, that can be helpful, but in a lot of ways also, it might completely miss the point, right? I mean, what if the most traumatic thing that happened to me was getting cut from the ballet? Let's say I was like Misty Copeland, but I'm not famous because I got cut, right? But maybe that has nothing to do with why I want to go to law school. And maybe I've talked about the grit and now I'm in a different ballet company. But honestly, why are you going to law school? Why am I reading this? It still doesn't answer that question. I think especially for a lot of first gen and minority students, when we get the advice, okay, hey, talk about, a trauma and how you've overcome it, or talk about an obstacle and how you've overcome it, it leads us to talking about something that is perhaps more traumatic, or heavier than originally contemplated. And it's not to say that you can't talk about something that's heavy. You absolutely can. But in your personal statement, you don't want that to be the entire statement. So I always say a trauma, an obstacle, a hardship, something heavy, it absolutely can be part of your story. You need to tell your authentic story. I don't want anyone to be afraid of, oh, I can't talk about that topic, it's too dark. But I want you to then move from that and tell me about how you've made impact in an area. Talk to me about your strengths. I like that personal statements, they should probably have at least maybe 2 or 3 anecdotes, stories, moments that show me who you are and kind of lead me to understanding the development of your passion and the development of why you're going to law school. The development of why I'm sitting here reading your essay, right? And so in those 2 or 3 anecdotes, one of them can be a heavy trauma obstacle, but probably it should be paired with 1 or 2 things that are not just something that happened to you, but something that you've done positively to make impact or to make change or to be part of this issue or this area that you're interested in. And I think that's a really important point, because oftentimes when we're talking about trauma, when we're talking about an obstacle, we are in the receiving seat. We have received this trauma, this bad thing has happened, sometimes life circumstances happen, but we are not the actor. We are receiving it. And I think there's a missed opportunity, because when we only focus on trauma and we make it, I always like to talk about personal statement real estate. When we make it a page and a half of what is supposed to be our 2-page essay, the admissions is now reading more about maybe, your life circumstances, but they're not reading about your strengths. They're not reading about how you've already tried to affect change. When you think about being a lawyer, you think about change makers. And there are so many different kinds of lawyers and so many different kinds of ways to make change. But I think one of the best examples that you can give in your personal statement is a moment when you have influenced and made impact and tried to make change even before you became a lawyer. Because I love to read essays where I can see, man, this person's a go-getter. They're in their community. They're making impact. They're trying to, it doesn't have to be a fancy internship or making policies already, but, maybe they're just galvanizing people around them, or they're standing up for themselves or for others. Like, man, this person is already trying to make change. There's proof in the pudding that they are a change maker, so that when I give them this law degree, I know they're going to use it to continue to make change, because that's who they are. They have a pattern of being a change maker. They have a pattern of being an instigator. They have a pattern of being a disruptor in a positive way. And I love that, right? There's evidence there that they already use what they have in their position to try to make change. And so when I make them a lawyer or we accept them to law school, I know that they'll keep doing that. As opposed to, man, what they've shown me so far, is that there's someone that, yeah, a lot of things happen to them, and man, I feel kind of bad for them, but I don't really know what kind of person or kind of lawyer they're gonna be. It's not enough to just be like, all of these things happened to me, but I kept trying and I'm here now, right? That's good. I mean, that's really good, right? We might think that you're a commendable person, but take it outside of yourself. Show me how you have been a change maker and impacted other people positively. Maybe something negative happened to you, and because you lived through that experience, you wanted to help other people who were going through similar experiences. And then you realize, hey, you know what? I want to help these people more, right? And so instead of just staying at this level, I pursued this level, and now here I am at the law school level, like I'm continuing to build my influence in my sphere. So, you want to just always be thinking, what is it that they're thinking about me? Or what is it that they want to know about me that's going to tell them, hey, I'm going to be a great attorney. Yeah, this negative thing happened to me, but I'm not going to talk to you about it for a page and a half, because I don't want to say like crassly, but they don't really care about the details of this traumatic incident. They care about who you are as a person and your character and what the pattern is that you're showing them. The second thing that I want to talk about, and there was a question that said, would you say that certain law schools really only care about academic competency? because I worry that I will try to approach the admissions process through a route of service that I highlight in my app, but I've been told that some schools really don't care about that stuff. I don't know who told you that. I would say that's a lie. I think that having those qualities of service and giving back and making impact, I think that's a quality that almost all law schools care about, especially the law schools at the top, which are also law schools that care about competency and academic rigor. But we as people want to be part of creating change makers. I mean, I love my job. I love getting to help people like you through the law school application process because it's also a ripple effect. I might help you and you might help 30, 40, 50 people. That's amazing, right? They might admit you and then you're going to go on to do great things. Every so often someone applies and they want to be a professor or that kind of thing, and that's great, right? We also need professors and legal minds and scholars, but for the most part, law schools are accepting people because they want to create change makers and people that are going to be influential. And if your sphere of influence is through service, then that is absolutely okay. Now, that second area that I said you want to try to avoid, you want to try to avoid being just very vague and unfocused. So there are a lot of you, and I'm not judging you. We all start from somewhere. But there are a lot of you that are applying to law school and you really have no idea why you're applying to law school. You have no idea. And I am definitely of the mindset, and I know that there are people who disagree with me, but I think that your law school career is actually much more effective and efficient if you know why you're going, because then you're able to take advantage of certain resources when you're in law school. You're able to, I mean, the 1L job fair comes very quick, right? 1L job fair is like in December, and people are like, oh, I'll go to law school and figure out what I want to do. You're not going to know any more in December than you knew in September. I mean, everyone takes the same classes their first year of law school. So if you go in September completely lost, have no idea why you want to go to law school, when that job fair comes around, 1L, you're going to be still what? Completely lost. You have no idea why you want to go to law school. And they have no idea what kind of job you want to look at. And, you know, you're going to be overwhelmed. At least if you come in with a plan, then you will be able to say, okay, this is what I think I want to go to law school for. And these are the kind of jobs I'm going to be thinking about for my 1L year. And then, you know, if I tried and I don't like it, I mean, that was me. I said, I'm going to do child advocacy. I was a family lawyer. So, you know, that I still did that. But I was like, I'm going to do child advocacy. I worked for my first summer at Legal Aid. Realized there's a lot of red tape with being a child's attorney, and ended up finding other areas in family law that allowed me to fulfill the same passion. But you have to go in with a focus because you only have 2 summers for law school. Now, what does this have to do with your applications? I know this. The people reading your applications also tend to know this. And what they want to do, especially, at all schools, but especially at mid-tier schools, they want to have good retention rate. They don't want you to come to law school, realize it's not what you thought, and then leave. They want you to graduate. They want you to get a job. These are all statistics that they care about. It's not because they care about you. It's because they care about their retention rate. They care about their employability score. They care about their graduation rate. They want you to pass the bar. Again, these are all things that they care about, not really because they care about you as a person, but because they care about themselves as schools. I mean, they care about you a little bit as a person, but also themselves. So when I read an essay and it is apparent that you either have no idea why you want to go to law school, or you have listed 7 different areas of law you want to practice, I realize that you have not really thought about this. And maybe you're like, no, I have thought about it, and these are those 7 areas. Okay, you haven't done enough research. You've thought about it, but you haven't had the right conversations with people. You haven't really researched and looked at, what does it actually mean to be a lawyer? What is my life going to look like after graduation? I ask people this question all the time. What is the job that you want the first 1 or 2 years after law school? And so many people have no idea. Law school is not the destination. And I think for so many of you in your applications, it is clear that's how you're thinking about it. You're thinking about law school as finish line. Law school is the starting block. I want to know where you expect this finish line to go. And some of you are running a race and you have no idea where you're going. And that is a problem. Yeah, in no other situation would we do this. And it is different from undergrad because most people, over 50% of people end up changing their major. And honestly, most people end up in graduate school of some kind anyways, and college is really set up for that. But this is professional school. It's not undergrad. It's professional school, okay? So I want you to think about law school as the starting block and having a finish line. And now sometimes people will say, well, I have 2 interests. I really like this and I really like that. Okay, so same question though. What is it that you plan to do 1 to 2 years after practicing? Because you can't have 2 jobs. And have you considered the intersection of those 2 laws? Because oftentimes that's a really interesting space to be in, right? So if you are interested in criminal law and you're interested in intellectual property law, what are the ways that they intersect? What is interesting to you about the marriage of those 2 spaces? But I can tell you, you will not be both a public defender and doing corporate IP litigation. Like, one of them. And you're probably going to do the one of them for more than 1 year. Like, you're not going to do a year as a public defender and then do a year as a corporate IP attorney and then decide and go back to being a public defender. Like, not going to happen. That's not how people's legal careers progress. And I know that I sound like I'm trying to put you in a box or any of that kind of stuff, but I just want to be honest about what it looks like to practice law. There are some areas of law that you practice in a big law firm or a medium-sized law firm. There are some areas of law that you are doing more direct services work at, maybe a nonprofit or a legal aid or that kind of thing, or a government agency. So all of these types of law are also not even housed in the same area. And even when you are in a big law firm, I think people misunderstand. They say, oh, well, I'm going to go to a big law and there's like 20 different practice areas, so I'll just do 4 of them. No. That is not how corporate law works or big law firms work, right? You are going to get assigned to a practice group. And you will probably be in that practice group for a couple of years. You may be able to get a project or 2 in a different practice group, but you're not like in your first few years. I mean, listen, when you're a seasoned attorney, you want to start your own firm, you want to have multiple practices, do great. If you want to rise in the ranks of the firm and you want to end up, kind of splitting your time into practice groups depending on the firm, also a possibility. But like, you have to understand the structure of the profession before you just jump into it. And so many people don't understand, like, literally, what is it like to be a lawyer? Where am I working? What kind of job is it? What is it's like when you're applying to college, right? There are some majors like engineering. You can't transfer into engineering your junior year. Not a thing. Right? You can't say, well, I'm going to major in engineering and also the business school and also I'll be a dance major. People would look at you like, no, you're not going to do that, right? And there are some schools, some colleges where you have to apply to a specific major. And there are some colleges, I know because I do college consulting, right? There are some schools where if a student's very undecided, we're looking at schools and I ask, how easy is it to switch majors, right? But it's like a big deal, switching majors. And people don't really think about that, right? They're like, well, I'll just do all these areas of law. No, you won't. You won't do them all at the same time, at least, right? Throughout the course of your legal career, you can definitely have movement and fluidity. This is also why you don't major in a certain kind of law when you go to law school. You just get a law degree and then, it's an apprentice-based job, so you learn the job. But that is also important, right? So many times the people don't understand the reason why you're not just changing new practice areas every year or whatever is because when you graduate law school, for the most part, you're not going to know how to practice law. It's like an unpopular fact that law school doesn't teach you a lot about practice. It teaches you like the laws and the theory and the jurisprudence, but you learn how to practice through clinics and practical experience. And oftentimes your first job out of law school, you're not going to know how to do anything. You're going to be a baby lawyer, which is fine, right? I was a baby lawyer. Everyone is at some point a baby lawyer. You're going to spend a lot of time learning how to do a particular type of law, and it's going to take you more than a year. I mean, someone once told me it takes at least 5 years to feel like you know what you're doing in any kind of practice of law, right? I don't know. I didn't practice law for 5 years, but I can tell you it takes certainly more than 1 year to feel like you have a handle on family law. I mean, the training is so crucial. Whenever you are going to a firm, when you're looking at jobs, when you're down that path, you want to ask people, how do you train your new associates? What does that look like? At what point? Because first you're going to be doing stuff with another attorney, and then you're going to be doing a couple things on your own, and maybe a year and a half later, you'll be doing your own cases. You'll be very excited, but it's still in that area of law that you have been training in. So it takes some time to get good at a certain area of law. And so it's so important that you understand that, because if you're in an application, you're saying, well, I'm going to do 7 different kinds of law. That tells me you have no idea how this works, because it's going to take you very long time to get good at 7 different types of law. And so I just like students to really, one, have an understanding, and to get an understanding, there's you should do informational interviews, start on LinkedIn, look up people's jobs, look up things that seem interesting to you. I think I really like this law and that law. Well, look at a job here, look at a job here, look at some job postings. See if anyone in your college or alumni network would, be able to talk to you a little bit about what their day-to-day is like. Shadow if you can, do internships. These are all the ways, honestly, learning how to be a lawyer is just watching and talking and looking and shadowing people that are doing it. But you need to start having these informational interviews. And this is one of the reasons why when here in this program, we do try to connect students with mentors when they go to law school, so that they have those opportunities as well. But you want to just have some focus and some realism. Obviously, when you're applying to law school, they know you don't really know. No one really knows. But, if you can figure out this is the area of law or the 2 areas of law, the intersection that I'm really passionate about, that I have some stories in my life, a couple, not just one. I have some stories in my life that really speak to this area or this passion, that I've made some impact already. I've tried to be, a change maker, even without my law degree, kind of within this passion area. And I feel like this is really what's driving me to law school. That will be a much more coherent and compelling story than if you're kind of all over the place. And this brings me to my last point, the last thing that you want to try to avoid. You want to try to avoid not having focus. So we are really big proponents of Outline. We actually have a software launching next month. We're very excited about it. It is an adaptive, interactive writing platform that helps you structure your essays. It helps you create outlines so that you can have a stronger essay. There's a quote by Matthew Lee, who was the assistant director of admissions at UT Austin a few years ago, and he said, writing an essay without an outline is like getting in the car without a GPS. You don't know where you're going, or you're not going to end up in your destination. Okay, so whenever you start writing, you want to have a plan. You want to have an outline. If you download our free guide, if you go on our website, smontgomeryconsulting.com, we have free guides. There you'll actually see the free, essential guides to applying to law school. It's 50 pages. It's totally free. Please download it. Take as much free information as you want. There is a whole section in there about how to write a strong outline, what you need in a strong outline. You need an outline that is going to be able to have you connect the different stories, right? You should be telling, like I said, at least 2 or 3 anecdotes and stories, but also the transitions. How do they flow together? How do we get from the beginning to the middle to end so it doesn't feel like, I don't know how we got here, right? It should feel really smooth. It should be a really tight, compelling piece of writing. Your writing quality is so important in your law school applications, and it is the thing that students often leave for last. But you need to have strong writing. You need to have strong essays. They need to be well structured. They need to have direction. They need to have good transitions. There needs to be a beginning, middle, and end. If you write an essay, I can always tell when I look at an essay that has not been outlined. I can tell. Students work with me. Sometimes, people, they like to skip steps. They give me an essay and I'm like, you didn't outline this. You just didn't. It's not even a question. It's a fact. You didn't outline this. And they're like, oh, no, I didn't. I know, because this doesn't even make sense. Because an outline gives you direction and structure. And if you write an essay without an outline, I can't even reverse engineering. A strong essay, I can see where the outline was. I can make that outline from my head. Okay, this is what the outline of that essay was. And I can remember it too, right? It's easier for me to remember. If you don't have an outline and you have an essay that's all over the place, I'm confused, I'm distracted, I'm annoyed. None of these are the emotions that you want admissions to be having as they're reading your essay, right? You just want them to be focused on the words and the impact and all the things that you've worked really hard for. You don't want them to be thinking, wow, this is a really sloppy essay. Maybe they're saying good things, but this is poorly written. Because that's how you not get into school. right? And sometimes people think, well, I have a high LSAT score, so it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. I know people who have 180s, 179s, and sloppy writing, and they did not get in, right? Because a high LSAT score, high GPA is not enough if your writing is poor. So I want you to really remember that. So the 3 things you want to really try to avoid, just to recap, you want to avoid centering your trauma, having your trauma be the entire essay, right? You want to avoid being directionless. You want to have focus. You want to know why you're going to law school. And then you want to avoid being unstructured. You want to really try to make sure that your essay is structured in a way that it's easy to follow, easy to read. Admissions is going to enjoy reading it. I always get happy when I read a good essay. I'm like, wow, that was enjoyable, right? I loved that. That's the emotion that you want them to have when they read your essay. As a reminder, if you are not, make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel and following our podcast. You can find that podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. I love you. I am so excited for you. I'm excited to read these personal statements. Like I said, if you need anything, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us also at hello@usmontgomeryconsulting.com, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.